Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Ah, I'm excited. I'm excited. It's a lovely warm day here in Costa Rica. I know we were just talking about the weather difference here, but I'm like, in my like lightest shirt possible because I'm outside in the heat, and I am just excited to inspire people and get dig into your story, hear more about what you're doing, and your entrepreneurial journey. So everyone, this is Kelly. She is the founder of Nerd Mom Nutrition, and she's a transformational life coach. Did I have that right?
No,
Oh, did
I
I
am.
miss that? Ah, see, this is why I check.
Yeah, no, that's all good. No, I'm a registered holistic
Oh,
nutritionist,
there we go. I don't know why I thought
and
life coach.
no, I'm a few things actually. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I'm a certified culinary nutrition expert.
Sorry.
Um, in my past life, I went to cooking school, so I've got a cooking background,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
and I'm a certified Cosmic Kids yoga instructor. So
Oh my goodness.
lots of
Yeah,
hats.
that's right. Yeah, I remember I was talking about this. So you're wearing all these different hats, which is amazing. And they're all very interrelated because I did these cooking classes once with parents and kids. And then you're like, but the nutrition and kids and yoga, if you're thinking holistic, right? Because what people are like, holistic is that all round thing. Before we dive into
Exactly.
details, though, can you take us back and just share a little bit with everyone, like your process of how to get here? I'd love to hear your background, like, where do you come from and some transformational moments that led you to where you are now.
For sure. Yeah, so I'm actually in Newfoundland, Canada, and I know that we were talking about the difference in weather. It's minus 11 degrees here. And I live on an island, so we're surrounded by water, so it feels even colder.
Yeah.
But I'm a mom of two. Now, you go back far enough. I've always loved cooking. I mean, I remember making omelets when I was probably 11 or 12. And I've just always had a love for cooking. Um, and you go back far enough. Like I said, I went to cooking school. I had my own restaurant. I worked in restaurants. So I did actually work in the cooking field. Um, and I, you know, through the jigs and reels, sort of took a side path, decided to, um, yeah, own my own business, went back to business school and all that jazz. But
Wait,
then,
wait, 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 wait. Sorry. I just want to read. You're like, I was cooking and then I decided to own my business and went to business school. Like that's this is a process I went through too, that I was like, oh, when I start my own business, like I need to go get my MBA and get like know how to run business. Like,
yeah,
so where was that? Was there like a moment, or are you just like, no, it just kind of happened? It was like more of a flow.
no, it's kind of funny because I once had someone say to me, this was when I was in my early 20s, they were like, I'm looking at your resume. You've got the resume of a 40-year-old. Like, you don't look like you're 40. I was like, no, I'm 21. you know. But everything was literally a process that it's like one step,
Yeah.
another step that led me to where I am today. So um I was actually in business school for quite a while, quite a number of years. I did it by distance,
Okay.
like it was our local university. So I did some in class, some by distance. And same thing, I traveled around
Yeah,
while,
yeah.
while I was doing that. But it was basically like my dad owned his own business, right?
Yeah.
And so I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I guess I always loved cooking, and I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
So then this was like
And
a fusion of those passions. It's really cool.
yeah,
It's really
yeah,
cool to see it, right? Like, because I love like focusing on what people do now, but I also feel like what we don't often dig into is like the whole process of how we got to where we are now. And I'm thinking, right, from the viewer's perspective, because you've been in business now, what, 4 or 5 years, right?
yeah, about 5.5 years.
Yeah, right, like 5 years. But people who are just starting out, that they can really see like, people who where they are right now, it didn't just happen overnight. Like, so I think it's important to go back and be like, I went through all this exploring, I took all these steps, it was a thing at a time, I've been building these foundations. Yes, I have entrepreneurship in my blood and in my past, right? And not everyone has that. I mean, I didn't, but that they can see that it's a process. right? Like if
Yeah.
you're thinking like 5 years is a good chunk of your life, right? So that you've been taking those steps. So you went to business school, you're in business
Yeah.
school for a
And
while, and then what?
well, and then I actually got out of the cooking field and I started working in quality health and safety. So
Well,
total left field.
but
Um,
health and safety, if you're thinking like you studied a lot of food, I remember I worked in restaurants for 8 years. And what you had to do was you had to study food and safety because that's like part of when you serve food, you need to make sure that it's healthy and right for people to eat. So
mhm.
I can make the connection. It's not that crazy of a jump, but it is the other side of things.
It is the other side. What ended up happening was for my work term, I started working for my dad's company.
Okay.
And after I finished university, I was like, okay, I'm going to leave now and do my own thing. And he's like, no, I want people around me. He's like, he didn't say no, but he was like, let me throw this at you. He's like, I want people around me who I trust. So I was wondering, like, we can train you in anything, right? Because I was like, okay, I got my degree now. Like, it's time for me to move on, move up, blah, blah, blah. He was like, no, we can train you in anything. And that's when I ended up getting into quality health and safety. He was
Okay,
like,
that makes more sense.
yeah, yeah. So then like I was working in that for a while. Then when I had my daughter, so jump forward a whole bunch of years,
Yeah, yeah.
met my husband, got married, had my daughter. I realized then, I was like, this little baby is new, has a new body, clean slate. I want to start her off right. So that's when I decided to go back and learn about holistic nutrition. So that, same thing. I sort of worked, I took my time doing that because I was working full time. I was a mom to a new baby. Um, and then when I had my son, I completed uh I became a registered holistic nutritionist. And then I was exhausted because I was wearing so many hats and I had so many things on my plate. I stopped taking care of myself, right? Um, and at the time I had actually thought, okay, like I graduated from the natural nutrition program, and I was like, again, talking to my dad, he was like, you should work with seniors because we've got a pretty big senior population here. Right. So I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I started working with seniors, but it never really sat well with me, you
No,
know?
I love it because you're like, yeah, daddy's advice, right? And dad's the entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
I want to zoom in on a couple points because a couple of the things that you've named are pretty important, right? The exhausting yourself and not taking care of yourself, right? Which is what I think that you're handling right now with moms. You're working full time, you had a baby, you were going to school, right?
Yep.
Then you're like ready to start off in this new career. And what do we do instead of listening to ourselves? Right. And really zooming in on that, we're like, we ask the opinion of those who are important to us and close to us, which is totally logical. But then we
Yeah.
sometimes leave ourselves out of the picture on that one. So I like that because it's also very reflective of like my process and what I've gone through. And also all the stories that I'm hearing. I'm like, oh yeah, that transformational moment when you have a child.
Yeah.
And you realize you want to do certain things in your life differently. Right. Like
Yeah.
maybe that's not the immediate transformation to I want to have a business, but I hear from so many moms that like having a kid is just this transformational moment in your life that just shifts everything.
Oh,
So
it's
it's just like
huge.
for a few, yeah. I mean, and obviously like you shift your entire career, your entire focus, your entire life. And of course, our life is run by these little creatures for
Mhm.
a few years. My mom says the first 40 are the hardest. I'm hoping mine will get out a little bit sooner than that. But that process, right? So to working with elderly people, but then it was like something's not quite right here, right? So where'd
Yeah.
you go from there?
So it's kind of funny because I was talking to my business coach, right? And I
Yeah.
said to her one day, I was like, this just doesn't sit right. And I said, like, my first inclination was working with moms. And she's so funny because she's got like, she's very unique. She's like, Kelly, I can even hear her voice in my head. She's like, Kelly, then do that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. That's that easy. So that, yeah, working with moms was my initial, or working with families was my initial inclination, right? So I started working on mom exhaustion because by this point I had taken myself out of exhaustion.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know how to do this. I've gone to school for this.
Yeah.
So Kelly, take your own advice, you know,
Yeah.
and like do the work, right? So I took myself out of exhaustion, started feeling well, doing all the things I needed to. And that's when I started working with moms. And that was closer, right? That was closer to what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. So it really is a process, you know,
Yeah.
like we are saying, because then after that, I was like, you know, I still don't 100% feel like myself. So
Mhm.
this whole process was not just a process in business, it was the process in Kelly too, right?
But hold on,
And
can I pause you there? Because
yeah,
this is also one of those arbitrary kind of separations that we try and make. Like I've had people when we're getting on these interviews, they're like, well, is it a more business oriented thing or more personal? And I was like, well, it's all together,
mhm,
right? Like if you're not healthy, you cannot get up in the morning and go to work and function well, right? If your
right.
relationship or your kids aren't doing well, like same story. So
Yeah,
like I think it's interesting, like, oh, we try and separate it, but it's really like one box that if you're nurturing yourself in one area, if you're and especially I so agree on this because I studied to become a hormone balance trainer, right? In one of my many process steps. And if you don't take care of your energy, you literally cannot take care of yourself, other people, or your business. And that includes in
no,
your clients. So you really just can't take care of people if you're not taking care of yourself first. So I love that you focus on this.
100%, you know, and taking care of yourself can look so many different ways.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, it wasn't just the food, it was the
No.
food, the exercise, the mindset, um, you know, but even like after I had my kids, I kind of had this idea of what a mom should be. And so I started being what, like, I took that on as an
Yeah.
identity, you know, and um again, it was like talking to my business coach again. I was like, you know, I actually said, if I could pick a color, I feel gray, you know?
Ooh.
And yep, yep. It was like, you know,
I mean,
I was
I like wearing gray once in a while, but it's not
I like
not
green.
like I want to wear it all day, every day.
No, I don't want that to be my personality.
No.
Right. And like, I remember saying to her, you know, I used to be nerdy and quirky, like in high school, like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I'd play video games and I'd read fantasy novels and play D&D and like, I
Dungeons and
was,
Dragons for anyone who doesn't
yeah,
know what yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry for
It's okay.
any of my non-nerdy friends. Um, yeah. So, and that was me. And I was very uniquely me. Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had kids and it's like, I felt like I couldn't do that. I couldn't be that person. I was
Yeah.
like I didn't know who I was anymore. So, um, through the jigs and reels, which for anyone who's not a Newfoundlander, that just means like, you know, through the process, I guess. I I realized that I had to get back to being me so I could be the best mom I could be the best
Yeah.
business owner. So I started doing all like being my nerdy, quirky self. And it's been a journey of self-exploration. But that's where Nerd Mom Nutrition came from, right?
Yeah.
I was like, she was
I
like,
love the name. I love the name.
thank you. Thank you. But yeah, she was like, Kelly, like this is you. And if you're in business and you're the face of your business, you have to be you, right? So that's where Nerd Mom Nutrition came from. And then again, talking to my coach, I was like, yeah, you know, I always loved cooking. Like I went to cooking school forever ago, right? She's like, Kelly, you've never told me that before. I was like, oh, didn't I? And she's like, so do that, you know? So that's when I sort of made the shift. I don't coach as much anymore as what I used to. I do still do a little coaching, but
Yeah.
I made the shift more to doing cooking classes and live talks and but still focusing And I've shifted from mom energy more to the family unit because I
Yeah.
started hearing a lot of moms say, my kid is picky. Like, so it's hard for me to make this wonderful, healthy meal when I got to make something else for my kids. So, and I just don't have time, right?
Yeah.
So, I started, yeah, focusing more on the whole family unit then
Yeah. So
because,
what, like, zooming out, what I think is so cool to see is that you've really, one, you've been tuning into yourself, right?
mhm,
Really tuning into you, what you enjoy doing, what your strengths are, right? When you're talking about the cooking and the entrepreneurship in your background and the like the business and the mindset, you've also gotten some really great support on board because I've heard you mention like 3 times your awesome business coach, right? So you've
yeah,
got someone to bounce those ideas of, also to give you the confirmation, like, hey, trust yourself, trust your intuition, because I want to bring this one to the forefront. It's something that's been a part of my process recently too, in working with multiple coaches, that coaches are there to support you and help guide you and ask the right questions and to hear you. But
yeah,
ultimately, it is your business and your decisions. So learning to trust yourself and having that intuition and also daring to follow
yeah,
that is so, so important. So like, I love that you're bringing that in. And what I like, again, coming back to the fact that it's a process, like, this is where you're at right now, right? You're like, oh, I'm coaching less and I'm doing more of the cooking lessons, which is amazing. Because I just want to ask you, like, how much energy and enjoyment do you get from the work that you're doing?
oh my goodness, so much.
Yeah,
Like, I love,
that, right? That.
yeah, that's
And
it. Right.
because that's what I do as well. Like, I help my clients figure out like how to enjoy their businesses more, because and I'm sure you've seen this with all these business coaches out there, all different kinds of businesses, and you've got the like the big, the Grant Cardones and the Tony Robbins and all this thing, like setting these examples, which are mostly men, by the way. I love seeing really successful female examples. If you've ever one of my favorites is Denise Duffield Thomas. She's a money
Yeah,
mindset coach, and she wrote a book, Get Rich Like a Bitch. I think I've mentioned her in a couple of interviews that I've done. But like, I love these powerful female examples as well, because they're showing um it's not just all about the money. It's about
yeah,
the lifestyle. It's about how much you enjoy the work that you're doing. It's about the impact that you're creating in other people's lives. And that's also the thing that you're doing, right? Branching out from moms to that whole family unit and thinking
yeah,
of the ripple effect that that is going to have, right? Because if you're talking about kids who are picky eaters, who shift the way they're doing things, then they influence their friends at school along the way. And you just have this impact of people who are being happier, more balanced, more energetic, like fitter, right? Through
yeah.
this approach that you're having. So I'm because this is my thing. I'm like all about the impact, right? Like, I don't really care who I work with as long as they want to create a positive impact in other people's lives, right? Like, the environment, yes, but my passion is like people helping people.
Yeah.
So when I hear someone like you who's like nutrition, especially, I did study some of the nutrition stuff. So I'm like, yes, the holistic aspect of it, because it's not just slap a band-aid on it or do the next fad diet. It's about like and I know, right? Like that foundational level, laying those foundations of good, healthy eating, enjoying your food, having variety, getting everyone involved in the kitchen, right? I'm sure. What else is like
Exactly.
essential though when you're like what does your approach look like actually when you're working with families? I'd love to know.
So there's a couple of different approaches. I was working actually one of my clients, I was talking to her the other day and her big thing is her son is very picky. So that was more of a coaching session.
Yeah.
And like I said to her, I said, look, this isn't going to be a quick process. There's no quick overnight process. It's just he's got to keep trying and trying and trying, right?
Yeah.
So I'm I don't believe in quick fixes at all. Things take time. Now, when it comes to the like live talk and the cooking stuff,
Yeah.
it's about having fun in the kitchen. So I don't know if I was telling you, but I've been asked by our local television station to host my own TV show, right?
That's so
Cooking.
cool.
Yeah. So that like I'm like,
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm like so excited about this, like just over the moon. But I decided a little while ago that everybody's so stressed out about health, and everybody's so stressed out in the kitchen and like post COVID and work and everything else. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not adding a layer of stress. We're
Yeah.
going to have fun. So in the show, it's me and the kids, and we're basically we're going on an adventure or
Yeah.
quest, you know? So it's like, let's help the weary traveler who's on his way to go save the fruit forest or and we're going to do that with a weary traveler shepherd's pie. And it's all about using the real foods, the lesson of why these foods are good for you, but then making it fun. It's like, okay, let's go deliver this to, put it on the altar for the, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, but no, what I love is what you're doing is you are bringing storytelling into the mix.
Yeah.
Right? Storytelling and fun. And
Yeah.
in part of my process, I was a parent coach, right? So one of the main things that can shift the entire dynamic when a family is in conflict, or when a parent is in conflict with the kids, by the way, this works with adults too, is creating fun. Right. So not just a story, but also fantasy. Like if you're talking about kids, especially under the age of 7, like tapping into that fantasy. And storytelling is powerful at whatever age. If you look at like some of the most successful entrepreneurs, like being able to tell an engaging story that keeps people's attention is so powerful. So when you're combining that fun and that fantasy and like the whole adventure aspect and making it exciting, like duh, why wouldn't anyone want to be on board with that? And the funny thing, I did a couple cooking classes for parents with kids because and I'm sure you see this too, like sometimes there's just the fear from the parents of getting in the kitchen with their kids because well, they're a little bit of a control freak, probably. Like my husband is known as like the cleaning police. They don't want things to go wrong. They don't want their kids to get hurt or burned, or are they the right age for this? And like, I'm not sure how you did this. I started because my kid wanted to be in the kitchen so bad. I had to drop potato peels on the ground so he could pick them up when he was 1.5, so he could be in the kitchen helping me. So I know there's just when there's the awareness, because I'm sure like it starts with the awareness. I want to create something different in my family unit, that there's just like hundreds of ways that you can involve kids. So I love that you're like bringing the kids into the kitchen.
Yeah, that's really it, and there's a couple things that I say too. Like, make a mess. Who cares? Like, it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So just make a mess. Let your kids make a mess, whatever. You know. You can do things that are certainly age appropriate, like in our show. If we're doing, say I'm cooking sweet potato, I do the cutting, but then my little guy, he'll mash it up after I've cooked it. Right? He can do that. My daughter can peel the carrots. So there's different things that they can do at different age levels, and they can be helpful, right? So while she's peeling carrots, then I can cut them. And then two, it's fun because they've got this little dynamic, right? So my little guy is younger, my little girl is a bit older, right? So my little guy will say, "Mommy, what's to marry?" Right? And my little girl will go, "Well, Michael, blah blah blah." She's like, the real likes being the real intellect kind of thing, so it's fun. But then two, if you're worried about something not working out, I've made recipes. I mean, like, I went to cooking school and I've made recipes that haven't turned out. Sometimes it's just a bad recipe, and that's just it, and that happens. And when that happens, breakfast for supper is great. Wonderful fallback.
What I'm hearing from you is like, and it's so interesting because I had this conversation recently with a couple of they were personal trainers and nutrition coaches or an exercise physiologist. And we were talking about how so many lessons from health can also be applied to business. Because when I hear you talking, I'm like, it's about being creative, right? Because you're catering to different age groups and levels. It's about being open-minded, right? Like about, hey, I don't know how to do everything. I don't know how the process is going to work. I also don't know if the result, like the where I'm working to, is going to work. but I'm going to give it my best try, right? Like these are so many of the, like, if you're talking like entrepreneurial mindset as well along the way, that like these are all part of it. And I love that you're the dynamic, right? Because and the fun in this, and this is something that I feel like so many of us have also lost in, not only in like relation to food and to parenting, but in business. Like, so I
Yeah.
love that you're bringing the nerd aspect in, because that makes it more fun. And that's also
Yeah.
one of my like core things. I'm like, business can be easier. It's not easy. I will never say like it's easy to have a business, but it can be easier, and it can be a
Yeah.
lot more fun. And you can dare to have fun and to make jokes and to not take everything so seriously along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Like, don't take yourself so seriously, because I mean, when you're being a business owner can be very lonely.
Yeah.
It can. And so when you're in the drudgery of the day to day, right, you want to find ways to bring in community, bring in the fun. Um, Otherwise, why are you doing it? Life is too short.
Yeah.
It really is. Life's too short to be miserable. So if your business is a misery, then why are you doing it? That's the way I look at it. Enjoy it. Have fun, and
Yeah.
and have the community, right? So whether it's working, like I believe you've got a mastermind, like so be in the mastermind,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
with a coach,
Yeah. Yeah.
be, have like-minded people around you
Yep.
and
You're
enjoy
touching,
the process.
yeah, you're touching on something very important though, because one of the business coaches I talked to way back in the day before I even invested in my first coach, she told me that every business owner, because especially female business, females are not like, well, people in general aren't meant to like function in a bubble, right? We function in
Nope.
connection with other people, in connection with society. And so that every female business owner needs to have three people in their lives. They need to have a coach or mentor who's someone further down the path. They need to have a
Yeah.
mastermind, to have that group of the like-minded, like ambitious women who are of all different levels around you, so you can really tap into that bigger brain. And you need to have an
Yeah.
accountability buddy, right? That person
Yeah.
who's then on like the nitty-gritty on those daily actions, like helping keeping us accountable. And that has stuck with me for so many years, because it's just constantly brought back that reminder, we should not be doing this alone. We should be doing this together. We should be
Yeah.
asking for help, or just like reaching out and be like, hey, I noticed you do business coaching too. Like, can we brainstorm about something? Or I noticed you do this really awesome. Like, could I pick your brain? And
Yeah.
so many times we're not like asking for help, which I think is such a missed opportunity. Because
Oh,
things
it
like
is.
cooking, things like
Yeah.
cooking, there's I feel like we all have something to bring to the table. Some of us have more strengths in things than others, right? Like some people are just like, I literally stayed with a friend recently and I love her to death, but I was so shocked by the way she lives, because it was like pure carbs in her house and she never cooks. She all eats out. And I was
Mhm.
like, there's no fruit, there's no vegetables. Like, how am I gonna like live here? But like, so I then brought my skills in there and like cooked a few meals and stuff like that. But it was just like funny, because I was like, we all have our different relative strengths and weaknesses. Like, tap
Yeah.
into other people. Like, this, what we are doing here is we are bringing shared collective, shared experience, shared inspiration. Because that's the next thing I want to ask you actually, is if you're looking back, because you're like 5.5 years in business, if you were to like look back and give advice to someone who's like just starting out or in their first couple years of business and really on that exploratory path, right? Because I feel like whether or not we think we are, we're always on an exploratory path in the beginning. Even if you're like, yes, I definitely want to do this, you're exploring.
Yeah.
What advice or tips like would you give to someone like who's earlier in the process?
I think a couple of big ones are be open and enjoy the process. One thing I heard my business coach say um was, you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
you know? And if I had success in that first year, I would now be working with senior citizens and probably miserable. I
Yeah.
would probably be coaching senior citizens and probably miserable.
Yeah.
So I had to learn I didn't want to do that. I had to learn. Well, the other thing too, I probably wouldn't have had the skills at the time that I needed. So knowing how to write a blog or film and edit um my own TV show or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You know, organization. I wouldn't have the organization that I have now to do the things
No.
that I need to do, right? So just be okay with taking the steps, because entrepreneurs, undoubtedly, we're almost like Veruca from Willy Wonka. It's like, I want it now, you know?
Or
And
yesterday, or yesterday.
yeah, yesterday. I mean, that's innately how entrepreneurs are. We're all like it. But we have to take a step back and realize that there's steps and there's a process. There's no such thing as an overnight success.
No.
Everybody has a background. So even all these people that seem like an overnight success, they aren't. They've got some kind of background. They worked for somebody else and had a clientele base already or something.
Yeah.
So
Everyone has a process.
everyone has a process, and and don't compare yourself to others, because somebody else's process is different than your process, and it's not your business what their process or story is, unless you're taking it as inspiration.
And I love this point, right? So, I mean, I'm just going to summarize, right? Because you're saying, like, enjoy the process, be open, right? Take it a step at a time, and don't compare yourself to other people, right? Or the way I like looking at it is like, indeed, unless it's inspiration, right? Because there's actually a book written on it called Comparisonitis, and how but it's that's not supportive. It's not building us up, and that's my approach. I know it's your approach. Like, we want to empower people, we want to support people, and if you're constantly comparing yourself to others, also when you only see the face, right, of Facebook, or the instant of Instagram, right, like, that's not the whole story. It's not the whole picture. And what I've learned as well is, along the way, like, everyone has something. Like, even the people that you think their life is, like, they've got health issues, they've got relationship issues, they've had to overcome, like, major drama or trauma in their life to get to where they are. So, like, I think that's another thing, like, along that, like, no comparing, because everyone has something. So I love that. That's already like a whole bunch of tips right there, because and the supportive thing, even comparing yourself to yourself, which is what I used to tell people to do, can be detrimental. Like, imagine someone who develops a genetic disease, and then they're comparing themselves to how they used to be able to function or do things before.
Right.
That also can be harmful. So, like, if you're like, exactly that, enjoying the process, doing what you can, taking it a step at a time, and doing it, do it together. That would be the thing that I would add on to this, which is what I love your approach being, is you're now looking at the families, not just the mom. Like, let's do it together as a family, because that works better.
Yeah, it does. Right?
Amazing.
You get people on board, and like you said, I mean, we're not an island, and part of
you live on an island.
Well, you live on. I live on an island too.
I don't live on an island. I was like, well, you do live on an island, but you're not an island. Yes, it was a joke. Yeah, it's okay.
But
sorry.
no, you're not. Well, it's good to have fun and laugh too, right? But I mean, so things like collaborations. I mean, you're in Costa Rica, I'm in Newfoundland, right, which is almost a world away, but having even this conversation and this collaboration, so having collaborations with people, having, like you said, having a coach, a mastermind, an accountability partner. By the way, I have all three.
I know, me too.
Right? And having those different lenses, from different people, different facets. And it's just so important. And embracing the fun, and having that community, that's all so important. You really need it. Because, like I said, being a business owner, it can be lonely. You need this connection. You need, I mean, go out and have that coffee coffee with your
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
you
really
need it.
that's part of taking care of yourself. And I think that again, we're adding another tip to the mix, right? Like, but we touched on it earlier. Like if you don't take care of yourself, and this is mental health as well as physical health, right? Like I'm living in Costa Rica and I realized one time I hadn't been to the beach in weeks. And I was like, what is the point of me living in this beautiful place if I'm not getting out there and like getting my feet in the sand and like grounding myself and just going for a walk on the beach or going for a
Yeah.
walk? Sometimes I do it alone, sometimes I do it with a friend or meeting up for coffee or having lunch. I was like, what is the point of being an entrepreneur if I'm not taking advantage of the fact that I make my own schedule to like
Right.
recharge my social battery, recharge my nature battery? Again, it's not everyone's thing to walk barefoot on the beach. Like I feel like I've really turned into my woo-woo hippie side here. But like whatever it is that gives you energy, whatever you enjoy doing, it could be meditating or yoga or reading a book or a video call or talking to a friend, whatever it is,
Mhm.
right? It even could be going like and running a marathon. Like that's not my thing, but
That's
whatever
not my
people
thing,
want
but
to do, I
yeah.
think like the taking the time to like consciously invest in not only the business things, because sometimes a lot of the time your business should be giving you energy, but it's
Yeah.
one aspect of the many aspects of your life. So
It
like the
is,
integration.
yeah, it's the integration. And even say with your business, there's ways to do things so that even your business can help give you energy. Like,
Yeah.
say, if I'm cooking in the kitchen and I'm not like teaching or like anything like that, I'll put on, I'm a 90s kid, right? Like, well, I'm from the 70s, but yeah, like I grew like my music is still in the 90s. Like I never graduated past 90s grunge music, right? So, I mean, I love being in the kitchen, put my AirPods in, listen, like blast Pearl Jam or Soundgarden or something like that. And I'm cooking away and I'm having fun and I'm moving my body and I'm making healthy food, you
Yeah.
know? And that's when you get amazing inspiration and
Yeah.
ideas
Absolutely.
and you're energized, you feel
Yeah.
good, right? And that's you're when you do little things like that in your business. So it's like, okay, if your energy drops, get up, put some music on, and
Yeah.
whatever your thing is, like have a dance party
Yeah, yeah.
or
But this, I
um
literally wrote a blog on this years ago when I was doing the hormone balance stuff. And it was, I made a 30-second dance mix and I had it was a blog on 10 things to do to boost your energy in 10 minutes or less. Because it
yeah,
doesn't take as long as people think, like even just a change of environment. But I love
yep,
music as a picker up. I literally had a playlist, like 30-second dance break. It's literally just to like change that energy.
yeah,
Even if you're like, oh, I only have 2 minutes before my next meeting and you've got back-to-back meetings, I'm like, be more concise, create those 2 minutes in between and
yeah,
get up, move your body, dance, grab a glass of water, like shake it off, and then sit down with like a completely different energy into that next call. So you don't have to be drained after a day, because a lot of us are, right? Like sitting
yeah,
behind the computers like all day long.
yep.
Like sitting is the new smoking, they say, right? Like
It
so
is.
like to get up and dance. I love that.
Yeah,
Hey, so I want to, and I think that's a nice way to kind of round off is like make sure you're having fun, use every moment, right? Like every moment is a possibility to have fun and to integrate, use music, use what you like,
yeah.
and enjoy the process of business. I think that's like the core thing I'm taking away also from our chat right now.
Oh yeah, 100%, and yeah, it's just so important. I mean, just to give one last example, a lot of times I'll go over to my mom's house to go on her treadmill, right? Because she's got this funky treadmill where it'll take you place it takes you places.
Oh,
Like
that's
she's
cool.
got,
Like virtual
yeah,
reality
it
stuff.
is really cool. I love it. Like, so right now I'm learning about Egypt, right? And I'm following this guy around who's going through all the Egyptian pyramids. And I'll take my dog over because he'll have a play date with my mom's dog. But my mom's dog wasn't home yesterday. So, and it's like I said, -11 out. So I was like, I don't want to leave my house, but I want to exercise. So I put on the kids' Just Dance on the TV, and here I am dancing all by myself, playing Just Dance.
Yeah.
And um, see, like this same thing can go for business too. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, this plan didn't work out. That's okay. What else can I do?
Yeah. That's also a
to
mindset thing, right?
100%.
What else can I do? Like, and things, and this is this is something living overseas, right? I've been like a nomad lifestyle for almost a year and a half now. Like, one thing that is certain is things are not going to go according to plan. The other day, like, my electricity got shut off for a half an hour. Oh, no, half an hour, sorry, half the day, right? So things didn't go
Yeah.
as planned. Or you've got someone at your work spot said, like, here, like, it's high season, so they were setting up DJ turntables at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Like, the it's just like things are going to be unexpected. What else can I do? So I'm like loving that tip. Like, come with the mindset, like, what else is possible? That possibility mindset.
Yeah.
So with that, like, Kelly, I'm gonna round off this interview because I feel like we could just keep talking for hours.
Yeah.
And this has been so amazing. I hope that you all watching are like so inspired to go have fun with your business, to enjoy the process, not to do it alone, to like keep the comparisonitis like outside and like energized, right? Like all the time. So these are like so much gold here. And I will share in the comments, right? Like where you can find Kelly and get more of her awesome like cooking show tips and the family nutrition stuff, because like most of my audience as well are moms and have families, and I know we've all had moments in our lives where we've lost that inspiration or gotten out of touch with like taking care of ourselves and things like that. So thank you so much for coming on today. I have like had a lot of fun with our conversation, which is kind of the point, right?
Exactly.
All right. Have an awesome day, Kelly. Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.